Hello everybody, here we are today talking about whether or not the Buffalo Sabres season is already doomed. So before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So I know this seems a little bit crazy considering Buffalo's season is still in its infancy as they are only playing 2 of their 82 games so far, and I get that. But I did kind of want to talk about at what point where I feel like this team is actually doomed in this season. And I think this all kind of started from the fact that I saw a post on Instagram from Sabres Source talking about how the Edmonton Oilers were the only team last year to start off the season 0-2-0 to go on to the playoffs. Now, of course, they went on to the Stanley Cup final, and Buffalo would be ecstatic if they were that team for this year. But there is a clear difference between Edmonton and Buffalo. Edmonton in recent years has been a regular in the playoffs and been a team capable of going on deep runs. Buffalo, meanwhile, is an organization that hasn't seen the playoffs in something like 13 seasons now, and that is a big issue. And I know people will say, well, it's just 2 games to start off the year, but at the same time, a 4-1 loss and then a 3-1 loss to the New Jersey Devils doesn't really inspire you or make you feel confident about how things will go, especially with how things went in those first 2 games. Again, 1 goal in each game. They're averaging a goal per game. They, I believe, are over 6 on the power play. That's not a great look either. In the first game, I don't really think the shots were in their favor until the 3rd period, where New Jersey had a little bit more of a cushion. And then in game 2, in the first 2 periods combined, I believe they got outshot something like 28-11 in that span. Not anything that makes me say, yup, this team's headed to the playoffs this year. And while I won't say that these are truly devastating injuries to start off the year right now, you do have J.J. Peterka that is seen as one of those brighter spots on the roster that was second on the team, I believe, in goals last year that is listed a day-to-day. I think he got hurt in game 2. When will he be back? Again, we don't know for sure. Zach Benson, a younger guy that is expected to hopefully contribute in some capacity for the team this season, is also listed as day-to-day. Those are players that aren't in your lineup right now that you may want to have there. And again, this isn't something where you hear this guy's going to be out for the season. And those are just more of those slightly negative things that make me a little bit worried. So kind of cutting to the chase here a little bit, I truly think that Buffalo's season will be decided in their next 13 games. I feel like after 15 games, we'll have a good indicator of what this team will be. In the next 13 games, they play 8 teams that didn't make the playoffs last year, with some of those games being a little bit easier. They play the Chicago Blackhawks, Columbus Blue Jackets, and then the Calgary Flames. Calgary, I don't think will be a bottom 4 side, but I certainly don't see them being a playoff team this year. So if they can't tread water and try to stay afloat against teams that aren't making the playoffs or haven't made the playoffs or shouldn't make the playoffs this year, I have an issue with that. Yes, there's going to be some hard games coming up against teams like the Florida Panthers, but that's just the reality of the NHL schedule. You have to find ways to win, and for Buffalo, it's really now or never. And I hate to sound so pessimistic to start off the season for them because, again, who wants to say that their season is done after 15 games? But when you look at that, you start to realize how many games are left in the season, how many points you'd probably need to play at, and then what pace you need. Let's say you needed, 68 points over your final 45 games or something like that. When you start to stack that into how many wins is that, what's our strength of schedule, because magically seems like whenever you really need to go on a run, you have the 5th hardest strength of schedule in the league. Those are all things you kind of understand how realistic or unrealistic really it is for a lot of sides to get the job done. And I know that sometimes I'll give teams the benefit of the doubt. Looking at the Minnesota Wild last year, when they got off the slow start, I thought they'll probably turn it around. They made the playoffs before. When the Oilers got off the slow start, I made probably 2 videos talking about how shouldn't worry, they'll eventually get it figured out. And of course, they nearly went on to win the Stanley Cup. And that's where I will make exceptions for sides. But for Buffalo, they've never even been to the playoffs with this group. They've been kind of close before, but last year they took a little bit of a step back. So I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt right now because they've never proven to me, hey, we can go out there and do this. And so, 15 games into the year, it really could be over for them, at least in my eyes. And I think this is really just going to show how deep the playoff pool is this year, because if you see a team start off the year winless through their first 2 games, most people would probably say it's not a big deal, but in my eyes, I really do think it is a big deal because what difference does it make between losing your first 2 games versus your last 2 games? Might be able to say, well, we have a little bit of an understanding about how we need to finish out the year in terms of making it to the playoffs, but every game, in my opinion, should be a must-win. This is a long season, but guess what? The first game of the year and the 82nd game of the year decide exactly how you'll finish in the standings. And for Buffalo, they can't really afford to just slip up through the first 10 games of the season and then say, well, we're going to play at a 110-point pace over our final 72 and it'll all work out. Who's to say that's the case, as this year features so many good teams that they're going to have to play multiple times throughout the year, and those teams might have their number. So for Buffalo, I don't want to say their backs are up against the wall, but they really need to stay afloat like we've already talked about. And I think for a guy like Rasmus Dahlin, a player that was just recently named captain, that got that captaincy, this would be a true testament to him in the early stages of this captain era, as he is not that 18-year-old kid anymore that is paired with Jack Eichel, and they're saying maybe things are going to be good here in the next couple of years. He's been through some bad years and is now a older player, not too much older, but still an older player that is competing with some other NHL defensemen to claim that top spot or to be in that top 5 category. And so for Dahlin, if he was able to stabilize things and then get this side to the playoffs, it really would be a testament to him and would just be amazing to see for a player that's been through a whole lot in this organization. A whole lot of failure, for being honest, but I also think as well, too, you've got Lindy Ruff. He's in charge. He is a coach that has seen more success than anybody that they had after they fired him. And for this group, they really are in a spot right now where I think they're okay in terms of the leadership aspect. It's more about just going out there and proving it. We know that they can score a lot of goals. We know that they can go out there and have a good goalie. We know that the power play could be good. And if they are able to find that rhythm early on in the season, I truly don't see a reason why they shouldn't be able to go out there and make the playoffs. They might be a young side, and I know a lot of young teams in the NHL don't go on to make the playoffs, that's for sure. But it doesn't stop me from saying I truly feel like they could get there. Again, some other teams like Washington, like Pittsburgh, like Detroit, maybe they underwhelm again. Maybe they don't go out there and do anything. Maybe Philly's not as good as they look this year. So for the Sabres, just get down and dirty, try to win as many games as possible, and help yourselves out. Because you don't want to say, well, we missed it by 6 points, and then you realize, well, if we had picked up a couple points here or there, we could have made it. So not to be doom or gloom, but yes, just pay attention to this team for the next couple of weeks and make your own opinion. When do you feel like the season is done for teams? Do you feel like they've always got a chance as long as there is a mathematical opportunity? Or do you feel like if a team's got, 45 games left and it's looking pretty grim, the writing's on the wall? In my opinion, it's earlier rather than later, even though, again, I think a lot of people would like to say that's not the case. You need a miracle run sometimes, and miracle runs are pretty hard to come by. So anyway, what are your thoughts on the Buffalo Sabres season? Is it over? If you think it's already over, wow, that'd be crazy compared to me thinking 15 games is early. But I do want to know your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey already. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.